مرحبا يا جماعة، أهلا وسهلا فيكم. أنا فريد، المدير وصاحب المعهد CGE Jordan, and I would like to talk to you today and give you a lesson that I think is going to be very valuable for you. Now, of course, this is going to be a small part of some of the things that I teach, especially given the subject, the big subject of the 10 forms, okay? The 10 forms, the 10 verb forms. So we're going to give you a lesson today on that subject, but we're not going to talk about, of course, all of it. The seminar that I give is here to our students at CGE. It usually takes about 4.5 to 5 hours, and that's minimum. So today we're only going to take about hopefully 10 minutes, and we're going to look at maybe 15 tops, and we're going to look at a verb, variable verb form from the king of the verb forms, Form I. So Form I makes up 55 to 60% of all Arabic verbs. So that means that in our spoken language and in our MSA that we use, the majority of those verbs are going to be found in a Form I category of verbs. And the Form I is quite simple in some ways to recognize. It has three letters, which is the raw triliteral root. Okay, so that is the 3 letters of the root. So Arabic, 97% of all verbs are going to be 3-letter root words. That's the base, the asas for the verb system. Okay? And this is going to be, the default is always going to be past tense. Past tense. So if you see dictionaries or books and they're presenting to you the present tense, for you to start with verbs or learn verbs, you need to be a little bit questioning that as far as the seriousness of the program, because anybody who gets deep into Arabic knows, and not that deep, just deep enough, you can find out quickly that the past tense is the default for the Arabic verb, not like in English with the present tense or in other languages. So, past tense. In Fusha, of course, we have the system of I'rab, which is that the last letter of most words can be categorized grammatically, well, in proper syntax, as by that last accent mark. Well, in Amiya, we make it a lot easier, and this is what we're going to be focused on, is Amiya. But we just simply take that off. It's not even there. So, a verb, for example, like katab, which a lot of people know. All right? Katab. In Fusha, it's kataba. In Amiya, it's just simply katab. That's it. No need for the last harakeh. We don't put it. We don't have that. So, but we're not talking about the standard 3-letter root, which makes up, the standard 3-letter format for the Form I. Today we're going to talk about a special format, which a variable form from Form I, which is Form I, but it's just a variable of Form I. And that is this. It has one letter and another letter with a shaddeh on it. And you might ask, well, wait a minute. Didn't you say that almost all verbs in Arabic have to be 3-letter root? Well, that doesn't look like 3 letters. That looks like 1 and 2 letters, okay? But it actually is 3 letters, and here's how it is. When we have, in Arabic, for example, we have a word called, the verb red. Now, it has 2, and we're going to look at it like as if it was in Fusha. We have one letter, another letter, another letter. Both these letters, this is a ra, and this is a dal and a dal. So, if we go to pronounce that, what does it sound like? Well, it sounds like this. Radada. Radada. Or another verb, like hat, which is an amiya verb, becomes hatata. Hatata. All right? Hatata. So, hatata, radada, they sound strange. What is done in Arabic is that this has become simplified. These verbs now, instead of becoming, being the standard three letters here, you have a shaddeh that's put on them, and it simply becomes red in Amiya, red, or hot. Okay? That's what happens, hot. Now, the second thing, though, we need to know about this particular form, and all forms really, but especially Form I, is what is it going to do? How is it going to look in the present tense? So, just like you have the word, for example, in English, man, if you know the word man, you know half of the word, right? What do I mean? Well, you know the singular, but do you know the plural? What is the plural? Well, if you want to say a plural, which you need to know, you have to memorize it, and that plural is a broken plural, namely men, okay? If that is true for nouns, it's also true as well for verbs. So with verbs, you have singular, and you have, not singular, you have past tense, excuse me, and you have the present tense, okay? So, the present tense, my handwriting is terrible, but you get the idea. The present tense for the first form is much more difficult because it's like the broken plural in that we don't really know, we have to guess. If we're going to guess it, maybe. We can't know it unless we memorize it. So you're not going to guess likely what, if you try to say, well, it's going to be man's, it's not, it's men. So here, with these verbs, they could take a fetha in the present tense, they could take a kasra, or they could take a, damma. They could take a damma. So it could be a, I, u. Now here, we're going to look at a couple of these, and we're going to go ahead and take them one by one, starting with the most used of the ones that are going to be most used, and also which ones take the which verbs you're going to find in present tense being used more often. Like what harakeh is used more often. All right, so let's just take a look at that. All right, so the harakeh that's used the absolute most is going to be none other than this one, the kasra. The second one is, this is number one. Number two is going to be the damma, and this one is hardly ever used, very rare. In fact, I only have one verb that I'm going to present to you from this particular, that takes this in the present tense. So let's look at this one first. All right, so we have many verbs. Actually, there's at least two in the 101 that follow this. And you've got, one of them is heb, another one is hes. Okay, hes. Heb is from the Fusha word, a verb, ahebba. All right, now we don't say ahebba in Amiya. We don't. What's happened is the verb has been simplified, and this doesn't always happen, but it just happens, but it just happened here primarily because it's a high frequency verb, and it just got simplified in this way. Heb. It's instead of ahebba, it's become aheb. So what does this take? Well, we say, what does it take? What does it get as far as harakat in the mudara, in the present tense? Well, here's what we would say. We would say, bihib. Bihib. Okay? This is he loved or liked, because we actually, in Arabic, we have one word to express two of the verbs that we would use in English. Instead of love and like, we have one verb which does both. Heb, and then bihib, he likes. Okay? Now, hes is very similar to that, in that it gonna look like this. Bihis. See? So these are verbs, there's a lot of them, that will take this kesra. And so I would say if you're going to guess and you don't know, you can guess kesra, and a lot of times you'll be right. But you have to say the correct one to really be understood, because it's just, I mean, no one says bihob. No one says that. Well, unless you want to use hob as the noun, so that's a whole different story there. But no one says bihas or bihus or bihab or bihob. No, they say bihib, bihis. So we got to know these and get them right. Well, let's look at how these would be conjugated or inflected. So the past tense, I do this with this chart. This is, like if you're pointing at someone, it's he, she, they, right? And then you, masculine, you, feminine, you, plural, you all, and then I and we. So this is how it'd play out in the inflection. Ready? Heb. Heb, hebbet, hebbu, habbet, habbeti, habbetu. Habbet, which is these, notice these two are the same. Habbet, inta habbet, ana habbet, same. Habbena, okay? So, you want to try to practice these verbs until you can get them fast. You can inflect them quickly, because they have to become second nature. But, so I'm going to do it again quickly, and this just for this one. Heb, hebbet, hebbu, habbet, habbeti, habbetu, habbet, habbena. Now, let's go to the plural. Let's go to the present tense, and let's see how it's inflected here. Bihib, bithib, bihibbu, bithib. Notice these two are the same here in present tense. Inta bithib, bithibbi, you, feminine, bithibbi, bithibbu, bahib, bahib with the fatha, bahib, and then minhib, or the Venus, they say binhib, binhib. I say minhib with the meme, minhib. All right? So, you get the idea there. Now, let's look at another verb, this time from this damme, that will take a damme. And here is one. This is one of the most used. Hot. Hot. Okay? That's one of the most used. Here's another one that's used a lot. Red. All right? Red. So, how will these play out in Amiya? Let's see. All right? Be hot. And then be birod. There it is. All right? Bihot, birod. So, let's just do this one in past tense. Are you ready? Here we go. And you can try to guess at home, all right? Hot, hattat, hattu, hattet, hatteti, hattetu, hattet, hattena, hattena. Okay? Now, Let's do this one in present tense. Ready? بيحط بتحط بيحطوا بتحط بتحطي بتحطوا بحط and منحط or بنحط. Okay? That's present tense there. Now, this means he put or placed something on something, you know. So we use this a lot. يعني حط المصاري على الطاولة. He put the money on the table. حطيت لك الكتاب على مكتبك. That's a little more complicated sentence, but it's straightforward. I put the book on your desk. So this one, رد means he answered the door. رد الباب. All right? Or رد على التلفون. He answered the telephone or the mobile phone. We would say in the U.S. we say cell phone. We say cell phone. All right. رد بيرد. Okay. Now, let's look at the last one. This is a rarer one, but we're going to check it out. The one that is happened to be one of the most used. It's in my 101 book. Dull. Dull. Okay? Dull will take a fatha. All right? And here's how, of course, it will look. Be dull. Now, this is from the verb. It's actually originally dhal. Dhal. Okay? Dhal. But in Amiyya, we have, and I have a video on this, you may want to check it out, how letters change from the MSA to the spoken Arabic. How letters change in Arabic to spoken Arabic. And this is one of those cases, okay? So, dal means he remained, or it remained, it stayed, or he stayed, okay? He stayed. Like we might say, أنا ضليت بالبيت طول اليوم. I stayed at my house or at the house all day long. طول اليوم. Let's see what it looks like in past tense. Ready? ضل, ضلت, ضلوا, ضليت, ضليتي, ضليتوا, ضليت, ضلينا. Now for the present tense, بضل, بتضل, بضلوا, بتضل, بتضلي, بتضلوا, بدل, من ضل. Okay? So, one thing that I want to get across here about this, though, this verb, a lot of times, and this is why the 101, my book, the 101 Most Used Verbs, is so extremely important, is because the most used verbs are actually the ones that you cannot find anywhere in MSA. This one, the way it's used in Amiyya, is very different from other verbs even. So you find a lot of the peculiarities about, in Arabic, you find the special things that are rarer in the most used verbs and in the most used words. So I tell people it's a lot like cappuccino. When you have that foam on the top, you don't really see what's in the mug, okay, or the glass. You have to get through that cappuccino. The cappuccino, or the foam, I say, is the most used, the most high frequency verbs and nouns and adjectives. And unfortunately, that's what makes MSA and Amiyya so seemingly different, because they look so different. However, if you just remove the foam, you get down to the Arabic, which is almost all of it shared between MSA and Amiyya. So Amiyya isn't that different from the MSA. It's the same. It's just that the most frequent stuff like this is used differently. And you saw heb, you know, and verbs like that, red, and then we have words like zet, and we have other things that we would use only in Amiya, and there just happen to be high frequency. So, anyway, that's your lesson today on this important variable form out of the Form 1. If you want to know more information about this, about the verbs and about just in general, all of these covered in an exhaustive manner, you can find it in my 101 book. And I want to point you to Amazon for that. It can be found there on Amazon. Thanks a lot. And inshallah, nshufkum al-mara jai. Bye-bye.